Good afternoon and thank you. It's a really interesting conference for me as somebody who comes from education to see the pace of change and how we need to adapt ourselves as educators to keep up and provide you with the skills and the people that you need for the future to stay competitive, to grow and to keep your position in the market. So I'm really delighted to be here with my fellow colleagues in the panel. Can I remind everyone, if you have any questions, please ask them in the app or wait until the end of the session. I'll start with the panel. Can I ask you to introduce yourselves and please give some reflections how technology is changing and how the way you do business and how we can put some strategies in place to address these skills shortages that you face or you may face in the future.
Great, thanks Sammy. I'm Hayley Cole. I'm COO for Government Relations and Regulatory Affairs at Bloomberg. So I was brought in a couple of years ago to look at our operating model, to see what skills we're missing in the kind of consultation response space, the relationship space, how we show up at our ministerial meetings and with heads of state, and build out a CRM platform for us to be able to kind of look at who we're getting around, what we're missing, and also the talent development side of the team. We've went from about 5 people to 30 people over a couple of years. What we're missing, what we have, what we need to enhance, just a whole lot of stuff to look at, and AI is at the top of that. And looking at, do we use Copilot, how we use ChatGPT, and how we get our staff to adopt it. They're the ones who are going to be using it. Are they comfortable with it? Are they fearful of it? So yeah, that's the kind of stuff we're looking at the moment.
Excellent. Yourself?
Hi, I'm Anita David. I'm head of HR for Credit Agricole CIB in the UK. I'm responsible for the people strategy here. And we're looking quite intently, as is everybody else, I'm sure, in the room, at the skills-based organization, how we can adapt our skills, the record, the data that we have on it, how do we adapt it to meeting business strategy. Pretty much everything about business has now changed, thanks to the leaps and bounds in which technology has changed. Whether we're talking about organization design, role design, decision-making processes, process reviews, everything has got an AI or a technology element to it. And what we do in terms of the strategy around it, I think the only thing that we can say with any confidence is that strategy needs to be dynamic. The strategy that we looked at in the past of 5-10 years in the future just doesn't work anymore. You have to be able to pivot as you're running. And that's an important part of what we need to change our own ways of working towards.
Thank you. Sarah?
And I'm Sarah James. I'm a partner at Simmons, which is an international law firm, and I head up a business called Adaptive. And Adaptive is about 12 years old, and it is consultant lawyers, so lawyers that work differently, going into our clients, primarily banks, on a global basis to deliver all sorts of projects. My other side gig, which is a part of that, is a thought leader on the future of work in relation to predominantly legal, but within those clients as well. So really starting a number of years looking at those consultant lawyers and them choosing and wanting to work differently as talent, our clients struggling with resource, and how do you put those two together. That has evolved actually in terms of clients not necessarily needing permanent headcount. The skills have changed, and working with our clients quite heavily of what the future of work looks like in an AI-enabled law, in a industry like law that traditionally has been quite slow to change, that is now moving at a very, very, very rapid rate. So I specialise in that area.
Excellent, thank you so much. I'll start with you, Anita. You mentioned something very interesting, which is the strategy has to be adaptive. So when you look at planning future needs, many firms tend to know what they need, etc. And I was talking to someone earlier that 20 years ago, you would have a clear sense of what your future skills needs are going to be. Is that still the case now? And do you see any barriers for you to get the investment, get the people that you need for the future? And also, do you find it hard to forecast and adapt as you go forward?
I think the strategy definitely it needs to be more short-term and dynamic. In terms of a skill strategy, you can look at it long-term, but as the panel before said, it's pretty. There's a dichotomy of behavioral skills and technical skills. Technical skills of yesterday may not be relevant today, and today's may not be relevant tomorrow. So you need to be able to change those pretty quickly. Behavioral skills we can expect to stay as a requirement for the longer term. So how well you can adapt, how well your creativity skills, your confidence, as you said before, that's the way you will need to look at skills in terms of how you prepare your own teams and how you prepare your organization to be ready for the future. Challenges, plenty in terms of investments. All of our companies, I'm sure, are investing significant amounts in upskilling and reskilling, and ROI is slow to come to see. So, but I think at the same time, everyone understands that there's really no option here. You cannot sit by on the bench and not partake in this change. You have to be at the forefront, and there's more patience required for the ROI to be visible. And people are afraid, whether we are talking about changing the roles, not taking them away, enhancing roles. There is still a bottom line is that change brings about fear in some. So it's really important from a leadership perspective to communicate, keep a clear strategy, and communicate a lot. There's no such thing as not giving enough information. So the more people start going step by step, I think it's not a jump. No matter how fast we try to go, it's got to be a step at a time. Otherwise, you're going to lose your people along the way somewhere.
Excellent. And what's your experience so far in terms of your new way of doing things and shorter-term strategies? What's the impact that you see?
I think we are seeing quite a positive impact. We did start off with the AI Academy, which has been spoken about before, the learning pathways. All of these are common actions that different companies are taking. We have seen early adoption. We've seen differential adoption. Some areas adopting AI and tools faster than the others. But what we have also put into place is a central AI coordination team, which is looking at the different developments made in different divisions and to see how they can be adapted across. So that we're not reinventing the wheel. And whilst the presentation by Lloyd's was very impressive earlier on, certainly achieved a lot in a very short time. It's the same kind of journey that we're on as well.
Thank you so much. Just moving on to Sarah, in terms of legal firms, and you talked about working with clients earlier. How you see the changing clients' expectations and new technologies impacting the kind of skills that you try and look for in your organization, and how do you think firms should respond to these demands and the changes that are happening rapidly?
I think there's no straight answer to all of this. It's doing wonders for my business because it's been called an adaptive challenge, which my business is called adaptive, so it feels like free marketing all the time. I think it's a real structural change, and we've touched on this, and there's a lot of repetition here, I suppose, that in how clients run their business. And they want speed and productivity, and that's a big one, and that's causing a lot of anxiety and challenging people. They want assurances and judgment, especially in the world of law, that the work is correct and that we're comfortable with it. And they want good for us partnership on transformation. We're getting challenged a lot at the moment on helping them to redesign processes, operating models. And we know that the fundamental shift in AI is not in the use of Copilot in your meetings, it's when the operating models and the way we do work fundamentally shifts. So I think the combination of all of that is forcing a change in skills, which I actually think is quite exciting. We're taking it, what we're calling it, sort of those fusion skills, and we've touched on it a little bit. For us too, we talk about the artisan lawyer, the creativity, the balcony view, getting just out of the expertise, still remaining the expertise, but also looking at broader skills like creativity. Some of the things that in the world of law, we haven't traditionally recruited for, or we haven't traditionally valued and celebrated. But really what's left behind, I suppose, is that clients are valuing most that still they want that deep domain expertise, but they also want data and AI literacy, and they want also the combination with human skills. And I think really those fusion of those 3 points is most urgent capability. And that is a shift for a lot of our people. People who can take a client problem pretty quickly, who can understand the regulatory framework and the challenges, interpret the legal context really quickly, and then co-design an AI-enabled solution. And that sounds really easy on paper, but it's not. And it's not so easy in a profession where people can be a little bit risk adverse, can be a bit slower to change, and also where they take deep pride in their professional and their recognition. So driving that change. I'm lucky for us, we touched on the last subject. I think a lot of it comes down to the senior leadership and the value that they play. So Simmons as a firm, we've probably been on our AI journey for close to 3 years. So we are, I think, relatively advanced. I think then we're changing it from process execution to design and oversight. So there's upstream, so there's workflow challenges, but then downstream into that critical oversight with people. And then I think it's taking sort of static careers to this continuous learning. And I think that's really exciting for us. I don't think it's any different to the world of law. We've always been on that consistent learning journey, but it's taking it into our business services teams as well. And I think there's a really nice breakdown of the barriers between fee earners and non-fee earners, which is a word we hate in law firms, but sort of lawyers and legal business professionals. We're breaking down those barriers, much more multidisciplinary teams, less about us and them and more about us coexisting and designing things together. And I think that's really, really exciting for the profession. I do think, though, it's making us really think about those traditional entries to the practice of law, into how we bring people in. We have solicitor apprentices. We've got them at 4th year at the moment. Our first cohort is at 4th year. I'm in a firm that 6-7 years ago, I would never have dreamed that we would look at solicitor apprentices, and it's unbelievable how we're dealing with it, and access to social mobility into the city as well. And I think if we don't have that sort of in building that learning agility, that meta skill, and making it really quite critical, and our people to realise this is essential to their existence, then I think we're going to struggle to keep up with the pace. And then I think the 3 things that we're sort of using, the practical moves to respond to this, is really using data to redesign work and not just add training. I think we're beyond training now. The real shift, as I said, is the operating models and treating this as imperative to everybody. Building and rewarding those fusion skills. How do we reward and recognise these new ways of working, and talent in cross-functional teams? To give you an idea, it's a good example. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm a partner at Simmons. They changed the rules after 125 years. So it's showing you the value that some of our organisations are having to do to reward talent of people who haven't come from traditional legal backgrounds. I think a lot of organisations talk about that, but not many are actually living and breathing it. And I'm 5th year into partnerships, so it's not in the last 6 months. And then those multidisciplinary squads. And there's a lot of reward in this for people's careers, right? Where you're working with people of different generations, cross-border, cross-collaborators, where you can really learn. And we talked about the challenges of more junior individuals coming in. How do we get them to learn from those really senior individuals? Critical thinking, judgment, experience that comes from, traditionally length of time. And we were talking about it recently and watching The Pit. I don't know if anybody's watched The Pit. And, the pressure that those doctors have in this TV show of giving their juniors, putting them in the pressure pot, and actually they thrive. So for us, are we challenging our juniors enough? Are we giving them enough access? Are we bringing them along on the journey? And are we setting them up for success? But are we also turning the heat up a little bit for them as well? And then really protecting that early pipeline of talent coming through. So I think it's a really exciting time. I think it is driving a lot of anxiety and fear, but we're bringing that to the surface. We're sort of naming it to tame it. And we're doing it as a way that we are creating our culture around, let's share this. We should be cautious about it. We should have governance. But if you're sitting on the fence, you're going to get left behind. So let's not do that either.
Thank you. That was very comprehensive. Just a quick quick follow-up. When it comes to clients, what do you think the impact has been in relationships? Do you see the change? You said 3 years you've been on your journey.
Yeah.
Client relationships improved or the same? Or
Yes, I think we're in an industry in clients. So if we're looking at the financial institutions here, where a law firm's typically billed by the hour, that's shifting. And there's a lot more challenge on value-based outcome. So I think it's personally building for us, and the way we're adopting it, partnerships is really important and trust is really important. I think you're starting to see in the law firms working in the financial institutions a lot more clear blue water, those that are embracing it and really going into it, and trials with our clients really well, and those that are still pulling away and saying it's not a thing. I think our challenge at the moment is going to be, and it should be, how do we as an industry support juniors in so that we're still creating this pool of talent into this space. It's really exciting. We've got a lot of working groups, we've got a lot of live work and a lot of collaboration tools between the two. I think it's quite exciting, but it still is a lot of unknowns, so a lot of trial and errors, but we're definitely on the journey. And the thing at the moment is there is a bit of tension. I think last year was really about the tools. This year is really about the people and engagement and collaboration, but I still think there's murky waters for how do we charge.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Hayley, looking internationally, where do you think the UK's position is currently in adopting these new technologies? And also, are there any financial sectors where they've done well in this area? And are we at risk of falling behind when it comes to adoption and getting the cultures right to implement this?
I think, as Noel said earlier, you have to start with the people and you have to know your people. And we have a very large presence in the UK, as we do around the world, and we have to understand that our teams in different countries, let's say in China, have different challenges to what we have here or in the US, and it's being able to communicate with them and have these AI platforms that we can use as a team but across all of these different jurisdictions. I think that's really important, otherwise what you end up is with lots of tools, lots of overwhelm. We all know what our goals are, we all know that we want to deliver for our clients, but we also need to do it in a really, really joined up way. And through the decision process and looking at all of the different challenges that we have, we need to be able to make changes within that and really be able to be flexible to respond to our clients' needs.
Okay. And in terms of your international colleagues, do you see faster adoption in other areas, or?
I see a lot of willingness.
Yeah.
I see a bit of uncertainty. We have multi-generational teams. We have apprentices up to very long tenured people who have been with us for over 35 years. What we've done as a division is decided on we have access to lots of platforms. We've decided on one platform that works for us, that keeps us all joined up around the world and across all different time zones. And we're really trying to lean into that. So we use Copilot heavily, but we also have ChatGPT. We make our agents over these different platforms, but we've had to make a decision to make sure that our team are connected together to drive forward with Copilot.
Excellent, thank you. May I ask people to continue posting questions on the app? I've got it here on the iPad. And also, if you have any questions, we will we'll take them from the room in a minute. So, finally, what do you think is the one shift we need to do, whether it's in terms of policy, business education, to turn the skills ambition into practical solutions? So I'll start with you, Hayley.
I kind of go with a bit of a stop, look and listen. You need to see where you are now, put that mirror up against yourself, your team, really understand what your strengths are look at where the gaps are, and as you say, moving people across departments as our time is freed up because we are using these new resources and tools. How can we plug those gaps internally? What skills do we need? It's very challenging, but I think with schemes like the apprenticeship scheme, we're going to be able to look at it and plan better for the future.
Okay. And do you think, how challenging is that work that you just described, looking at the skills that you need, etc.?
I think it's partnership with HR, really understanding who makes up your team, what people's hopes are for their own development journeys, what their interests are versus what they need to deliver in their day jobs, and trying to get a lot of what the business needs versus what's going to kind of spark passion in your people to go that extra mile.
Okay. Anita, what's the one shift we need to make?
I think the UK per se is already potentially well placed, especially in the financial sector. The organisation and the partnership that we have with Skills England and FSSEs and the compact that we're talking about now, that's setting you a fairly decent baseline on which you can take things from. Obviously, as people have said before, the section of the section of the employees that are going to be most impacted by the AI revolution is the younger generation who are just coming in. The kind of jobs that we currently hire them into are the ones that are most likely to be impacted. So I think what we do need to see is a change in terms of partnerships that we have as an industry with the education sector and with the government, of course, but also a change in the way that education takes place. And Tessa did say it takes a long time to make those changes. But dare I say, perhaps a business opportunity for someone out there, taking from the aviation industry or the space agency industries, that we could do simulations to get people more, used to the softer aspects of what individuals who are coming into the industry as newbies are going to need to know, because the technology is going to change, but the behavioral aspects, as I said, the people, those skills are going to be long term, and we need to figure out a way in which we can get the youngsters into roles which are at a higher level of skills without actually putting them through the many years that those of us who are here have potentially gone through to get there.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I work with a lot of young people at the university setting and also at the college setting. And Tessa was right, we've got over 1 million people now in 16 to 24 who are unemployed. And it's a big challenge. How do we provide these young people with the skills to be able to get jobs with people in this room and be able to deliver for you in the future?
One of the things that I did find really interesting was being able to design kind of target modules that go alongside apprenticeship schemes to address some of these issues.
Yeah. Okay, Sarah, what's your one shift that you think we need to make?
So I think it's back to people, and I think it's a challenge for leadership. I really do think that the shift comes when you have leaders that understand this challenge and are at the forefront of saying this is very real. They're turning the heat up on their own managers and they're challenging people. And I think there needs to be, for leaders, a deep emotional connection to this. This is about legacy, and that we have a moral responsibility to lead this. And if you have that coming down, and I have it in my own organisation, from your most senior leaders, you will engage your people. And then the other thing I think at the moment we need to do is it's probably becoming very evident in our organisations, those that are leading into AI. I think there's a silent group of people that are non-adopters, and we need to engage with them. We need to name their fears and anxieties. We need to make them feel comfortable with talking about them, and we need them to get them to view AI not as a competitor but as a collaborator. And if they're not engaging with it in their work life, we need to get them to start using it as an educator, as a coach, as a business partner to them, as someone who can stress test their ideas. Get them engaging with AI not as a competitor but as a support network and a leveler. And I think deeply in this report too, women and gender are in a lot of the roles and social mobile individuals that are going to be impacted the most. And I think we all have, as leaders, a legacy and a deep responsibility to upskilling and seeing those people first, because we're probably seeing the ones that are our high performers. Let's take a actual, personal responsibility for those that are maybe going to be left behind, and let's get them on that journey. And that's where they need to be this year. And that's our own, everyone in this room's responsibility and the leaders of our organisation.
Thank you so much. So we've got some really interesting questions here. Anita, there's a question specifically to yourself. How does the approach in the UK differ from the approach in France?
As a branch, a lot of the central tenets of how we adopt AI across the world is going to be, head office driven really. But I would say that the UK is more advanced in its adoption of this. So while the principles are global, I think we've been a lot more quicker at adoption. We've seen the impetus coming from employees really, more so than the managers in some cases. Leadership is fully on board, and I think that the market is what it is in the UK. The market drives you to make those steps faster than one would see happen on a more global basis and potentially other locations. One of the advantages I would think in terms of the younger population getting into this industry is that we have a scheme of internships where we have a significant number of internships that we do offer. That's in line with the wider global principle of giving youngsters the opportunity in this industry. It's not easy to get your foot in, but we give them the experience to get their foot in. And they may or may not get into permanent roles in here, but that's their first step. And that's driven globally. So the adoption of that is equally done in the UK as well.
Okay, thank you. Hayley, I think I'll ask you this next question is, how do you communicate what the UK has to offer to your international colleagues?
Well, we've got a fantastic UK team, and when we're out convening around the world, we engage with embassies, ministries, regulators, and the team show up. They get in front of them, they get in the room, and being out there and making yourself available, picking up the phone. And I think someone said earlier, sometimes you get emails, people don't know how to kind of pick up the phone and have that conversation. Just being in the space, and there's conferences all over the world. You have IMF weeks, you have Davoses, you have all of these things going on, and you've just got to get up and get into the room and just show what you're doing, why you're doing it, and have the conversations.
Excellent, and potentially maybe the impact of what you're doing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that goes without saying. The work that we do at Bloomberg, it's being close to your clients.
Are there any questions in the room? Anyone? Yeah, the lady.
I speak quite loudly. Hi, I'm Nikki, I'm from City HR, and one of the things that we've been hearing from our member organisations is some of the struggle they have at getting governance right, so that they can actually deliver their strategy. So if you've got any tips or practicalities, principles, considerations, lessons learned, love to hear them.
So for us, it's a really interesting one, because governance can be so restrictive, or it can go completely a different way. And I think governance these days needs to be embedded in everybody's job. And I think for us, it's been creating the tools and the space for people to use AI, experiment with AI in a really safe, secure space. And being able to encourage to openly talk about the opportunities, the threats, where it went well, where it didn't work, what the challenges are. So getting that balance right is really challenging, but part of it is just educational. People need to understand why governance is really important, but it can't be a hindrance to them to innovation. We learn on the go. We learn, we can see in our own tools. We can't see in our Microsoft tools because Microsoft put a lot of parameters around it, but our own tools, we can see what people are using AI for, where the lessons are, what we can do, and we're constantly looking at new ways of engaging with AI. So it cannot be a static problem where you give someone a tool and that's the end of it. It needs to be constantly updated, encouraged, talked about, celebrated, challenged, and I do think it comes a little bit down to the culture of your organisation. Yeah.
Any more questions from the room? No. Do you have anything?
I think just to add to that, in our industry, governance is paramount. And so it's inbuilt in everything that we do. We can't do without it, and at the same time, I'm sure a lot of us do dislike the amount of it that we have to do. But I think from the adoption of AI, it's absolutely a necessity because we don't know what we are doing today, how that's going to be risky in the future. Cybersecurity, regulations, we need to be in line with all of these things. So the way to do it that we have done here at Crédit Agricole is really building tools that are for the organization, adapting external tools for the organization so that you are more in control of the data in there and the use of it. And of course we have the guardrails which have to go with it. Then with time the governance becomes easier, but it definitely needs to be part and parcel of it.
Thank you. How do you approach governance, Hayley?
I think it's absolutely necessary. I think people potentially need to be comfortable within that space. And again, as you said, you have the guardrails there to protect you, and you can be a bit exploratory, but in a very controlled environment. So it's not like you're going to blow up any systems or anything, but it's the case of you can test those pressure points over various different subjects.
In the discussion between Tessa and Claire earlier, there was a talk about short courses and how much the financial service sector pays back 100 million a year in terms of the apprenticeship and the growth and skills levy. And just on this point, the government or Skills England 2 weeks ago introduced AI governance short program, short course. So if anyone's interested, just Google that and look into Skills England's website. It's a 30-hour training program for leaders in the safeguarding and governance of implementing AI, and obviously it's funded if you pay the levy. There is a question here from myself. How do young people view financial services? Is it a sector they want to work in? I used to work at Tower Hamlets College many years ago, I think possibly 10 years ago. And I remember we were in the shadow of Canary Wharfs, and the young people there see all the big banks and the firms there. And I would say 80% of people that I spoke to wanted to work in one of these places. But they didn't have the confidence to do that. They didn't have, potentially the support mechanism at home to be able to apply and put a strong application to get a place. And I'm sure many of you firms here do similar programs. By the time we worked with KPMG, they had something called the STARS program. And that was a year-long program where they sent people to come to the college and work with some of our really high-performing students. But these students were not just high-performing, they came from families where they had to have free school meals, for example. They really deprived backgrounds. Colleagues from KPMG came once a month, gave them sessions around how do you improve your interview skills, how do the people behave in the workplace, etc. And I think at the end we placed 30 people into KPMG, and I saw one of them 2 years after in the street. And I asked her, how are you doing? She said, the best time of my life, I'm now working in Chicago. and she was, I think, 19 years old. So I would say there is a lot of interest in working in this sector, but a lot of people don't know how to get into the sector in London specifically. So any schemes like that will really help people. I work at college and university, and we're always looking at partnerships and work with organizations to try and come in and speak to people or send people to come to you to make sure that you've got people that you need and will deliver for yourselves. I think
if I can just say as well, we have a work placement program at Credit Agricole, which is targeted at socially diverse schools. We work with the Mulberry Trust, and that gives students in the latter years of school their first exposure. We do sessions in which we would, give them an overview of what the financial sector, different divisions that we do, whether it's trading, whether it's legal, whether it's compliance, whether it's something else. We give them just a taster. And we also train them on interviewing skills. We then track to see which of them will come back for a summer internship in future, then move on to the internships and so on. So we're trying to build that pipeline in and open the sector a little bit more to those who previously may not have considered it.
Thank you. I think we're out of time, but I'm really delighted because I think there's been a lot of focus today on the people element. When I came to this, I was a little bit nervous about people being displaced from opportunities as somebody who works with young people, trying to get people into employment, etc. I'm really delighted to hear from everyone the focus on the people element and how do we support people to continue to grow, whether they're in work now or in the future. So I want to thank everyone here. Thank you to the panel, and I wish you a good rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you.